The astral Voyager cruised through the dark stretches of space, its sleek hull glistening under the light of distant stars. Inside, Captain Alara stood, gazing out from the bridge's viewport, her eyes filled with determination. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates of the unknown system," Commander Juno's voice interrupted her thoughts. Alara turned, nodding. "Let's make history." The crew of the astral Voyager worked with precision, adjusting systems and gathering readings from sensors. The hum of the ship's engine was the only sound as it moved closer to the uncharted system. "I've never seen anything like this," Juno added, her voice filled with awe as data flickered across the console. Alara's hand lightly rested on the armrest. "This is it, Juno. This could change everything. Get ready." The crew knew that in just moments they would cross into a realm never seen before, where the unknown awaited, full of danger and discovery. The astral Voyager descended toward the unknown planet, the ship's sensors scanning the surface below. The planet was unlike any they had encountered before, its surface shrouded in strange readings. "Captain, the surface is emitting energy signatures we've never seen before," Commander Juno reported, her voice tense. Alara's gaze remained fixed on the planet below. "Can we pinpoint the source? It's coming from an enormous structure. It seems to be deep underground, under what appears to be a large city," Juno replied, typing rapidly at her console. "It could be the source of the strange energy readings we've detected." Alara turned to her crew. "Prepare for a landing. We need to investigate." The crew began to prepare for the descent, their minds filled with questions about what lay beneath the surface of this strange world. The astral Voyager descended further into the unknown, and the sense of mystery deepened. The landing party emerged from the astral Voyager, their boots crunching on the dust as they stepped onto the planet's surface. The air was thick and humid, filled with the smell of ancient stone and overgrown foliage. The ruins of an ancient city sprawled before them, vast and silent. The towering structures were covered in moss and vines, signs of their long abandonment. "This place, it feels as if time has forgotten it," Farron said, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain Alara surveyed the surroundings with a steady gaze. "We've come to uncover its secrets." The crew moved cautiously through the city, their boots echoing on the cracked stone streets. "Where did they all go?" Arya asked, her voice filled with both curiosity and unease. As they ventured deeper into the city, the strange energy signatures grew stronger, and an eerie silence enveloped them. Whatever this place was, it was waiting for them to uncover its mysteries. The further the crew ventured into the city, the more the air seemed to hum with a strange energy. "The readings are coming from that large structure ahead," Juno said, pointing to a looming building at the center of the city. It was a towering monument, with strange carvings etched into its surface. The crew moved forward, their steps steady but cautious. "It's almost like it's waiting for us," Farron muttered. Captain Alara nodded. "We need to get inside." As they approached the entrance, the massive stone doors creaked open, as if sensing their arrival. The interior was dark, the air heavy with age. Inside, the walls were lined with murals depicting strange beings and cosmic events. "This is it," Alara said, her voice filled with awe. "This is the heart of the city. Let's see what it has to offer." As they stepped deeper into the structure, the energy around them grew more intense, and the mystery of the planet thickened. Inside the ancient structure, the crew stood in awe as they examined the walls, which were covered in intricate carvings and murals that depicted distant stars and strange creatures. "This is no ordinary place," Arya said, her voice reverberating in the cavernous space. "These symbols, they're unlike anything we've seen." Commander Juno moved closer to one of the murals. "These patterns, they appear to be a star map, but one I don't recognize." Captain Alara took a step forward, running her hand along the carvings. "It's pointing us to something. We just need to understand what." As they continued to explore, the energy around them intensified, and a soft, otherworldly hum filled the air. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "It's almost like the structure is alive," Farron whispered. "Like it's waiting for us to activate it." Alara nodded. Let's find out what it wants. They moved deeper into the structure, unaware that they were about to unlock a force far greater than they had anticipated. The astral Voyager hovered just above the unknown planet, the city they had just explored far below. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense as the crew reviewed the data they had gathered. "This place, it's unlike anything we've seen," Commander Juno said, her voice filled with disbelief. "The structure we explored is emitting energy unlike anything we've encountered before." Captain Ilara stood at the bridge, looking out at the planet below. "Whatever this is, it's ancient, and it's still active." Farron, his arms crossed, stared at the holographic readout. "The energy signatures are fluctuating. Something is changing in the structure." Ilara turned to Juno. "Can we identify its source? We've pinpointed something underground beneath the city. It's massive, but the readings are erratic," Juno replied. Ilara's expression hardened. "Then we're going down again. We need to uncover the truth of this place before it's too late." The crew prepared for another descent, ready to face whatever waited beneath the surface. The landing party returned to the surface, their boots crunching against the rocky ground as they descended into the heart of the city. "The energy levels are spiking," Juno said, looking at her equipment. "Whatever's causing it is deep within the planet. We need to find the source," Captain Ilara said firmly, leading the group toward the massive structure they had encountered earlier. The strange carvings on its surface glowed faintly, responding to their presence. "It's almost as if the structure is alive," Arya observed. As they entered the structure, the air grew colder and the energy readings increased. "This is no ordinary building," Farron said, his voice uneasy. The crew moved deeper into the dark corridors, the walls echoing their footsteps. Suddenly, a low rumble reverberated through the air, and the floor beneath them trembled. "What was that?" Arya asked. "Something's happening," Ilara said, her voice tense. "Stay alert." The ground shook again, more violently this time, as if the planet itself was reacting to their presence. The crew ventured deeper into the heart of the structure, the rumbling growing louder with each step. As they approached a central chamber, a low mechanical hum filled the air. The walls of the chamber were covered in ancient, intricate symbols. In the center, a large glowing core pulsed with energy. "This is the source," Juno said, her voice filled with awe. "This energy, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's alive." Captain Ilara stepped forward, her hand outstretched toward the glowing core. "What is it? Who built this?" The core hummed louder, as if responding to Ilara's presence. Suddenly the core flared brightly, casting an intense light throughout the chamber. "Get back!" Farron shouted, pulling Ilara away just in time. The light dimmed, and in the silence that followed, a voice echoed in their minds. "You have awakened me," the voice said, ancient and powerful. "Now, you must prove yourselves worthy." The crew stood in stunned silence as the voice reverberated in their minds. "What do you want from us?" Captain Ilara demanded, her voice steady despite the fear rising within her. "Prove yourselves worthy," the voice repeated. "The trials have begun." Suddenly, the chamber shifted, the walls moving to reveal a dark corridor. The ground beneath their feet began to pulse, and the air grew thick with tension. "I don't like this," Farron muttered, his hand instinctively resting on his weapon. "We don't have a choice," Ilara replied. "We have to go forward." The crew moved cautiously through the dark corridor, their weapons drawn. The hum of the core still resonated in the air, guiding their steps. As they moved deeper into the structure, they found themselves in a large circular chamber. In the center stood a pedestal, glowing with the same energy as the core. "This must be the first trial," Juno said, her voice filled with apprehension. Ilara stepped forward, her hand hovering over the pedestal. "Let's see what happens." Captain Ilara placed her hand on the pedestal, and the room instantly went dark. A deep rumble shook the chamber, and suddenly, the crew found themselves surrounded by a series of holographic figures. "These are the guardians of the trials," Juno whispered, her voice filled with awe. The figures were tall, their faces obscured by masks, and their bodies cloaked in flowing, ancient armor. You seek to claim the power of this place, one of the figures spoke, its voice deep and resonant. But to do so, you must prove your worth through the trials. Farron stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. What kind of trials? He asked. The figure raised a hand and the floor beneath them shifted. The trial of courage, the trial of wisdom, and the trial of sacrifice. Only those who pass will be granted access to the power of the Ancient Ones. The crew exchanged looks, each one steeling themselves for the challenges ahead. We'll do whatever it takes, Alara said, her voice steady. The trials had begun, and they had no choice but to face them. The trial began almost immediately. The room around the crew seemed to dissolve, and they were transported into a new realm. They found themselves standing at the edge of a vast chasm, its depths hidden in shadow. A single narrow bridge stretched across, disappearing into the darkness on the other side. This is the trial of courage, Alara said, her voice filled with a quiet understanding. We have to cross it. Farron stepped forward, eyes fixed on the dangerous path ahead. I'm not afraid of heights, he muttered. But something feels off about this. Stay focused, Alara said firmly. The bridge creaked beneath their feet as they stepped forward, each member of the crew hesitating at first, but moving forward. The wind howled through the chasm, and the sound of rushing water echoed far below. As they neared the middle of the bridge, a shadowy figure appeared before them, blocking the path. It was a manifestation of their deepest fears. You must confront me to pass, the figure growled, its voice a deep, hollow echo. The figure loomed before them, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. You can't escape me, it said, its voice reverberating through the air. Alara's heart pounded as she stepped forward. We don't need to escape. We need to face you. The figure raised a hand, and the world around them began to shift. The ground beneath their feet cracked open, revealing dark, swirling shadows. Farron clenched his fists. I don't have time for this, he growled, stepping toward the figure. As he did, the shadows reached out for him, pulling him toward the edge of the chasm. Farron, Arya cried, rushing to his side. With a fierce tug, she managed to pull him back from the brink. The figure laughed. You cannot win, not while you are burdened by your fear. Alara stood firm, her eyes locked on the figure. We're not afraid of you, she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. The figure faltered, its form flickering as if unsure of itself. The crews combined began to push back the dark presence. As the figure began to dissolve into the shadows, Alara took a deep breath. We've passed the trial of courage, she said, her voice filled with a sense of calm resolution. But we've only just begun. The darkness around them began to lift, revealing a new landscape. The ground beneath their feet was solid again, and the wind had stopped. In front of them stood a towering stone archway, beyond which lay a vast library, its walls lined with ancient books and scrolls. The trial of wisdom, Juno said, her voice filled with awe as she gazed at the immense collection. But what is it we need to learn? Alara stepped forward, her eyes scanning the massive library. Whatever knowledge this place holds, we need to unlock it. There's no turning back now. As the crew stepped into the library, the air seemed to pulse with ancient energy. The bookshelves stretched into infinity, filled with knowledge from civilizations long gone. Let's find what we're looking for, Alara said, leading the way. The crew wandered deeper into the library, each member pulled in different directions by the knowledge it contained. There's something strange about this place, Arya said, her eyes scanning the shelves. It's like the library is watching us. Farron nodded, his hand brushing along the spines of the books. I feel it too. As they moved further, a massive book floated off one of the shelves and opened in mid-air. Its pages turned slowly, revealing an ancient map of stars. This is it, Juno said, her voice filled with awe. This map, it's showing us the path to something important. Alara stepped forward, her eyes locked on the map. It's leading us to the next trial, she said, her voice steady. We have to follow it. The book's pages fluttered, and the map shifted, showing an unknown star system. This must be our next destination, Juno added. We need to prepare to leave. The crew gathered, their focus now clear. The knowledge from the library had given them the key to the next trial. With the knowledge gained from the library, the crew returned to the Astral Voyager and set course for the newly discovered star system. The ship's engines roared to life as it broke free from the planet's gravity, heading into the depths of space. We've got the coordinates, Juno confirmed, her fingers flying over the console. It'll take us a few days to reach the system, but we should arrive soon. Elara nodded, her face grim. This could be the key to unlocking everything. If we're right, the next trial will be the final test. The crew settled in for the long journey, each person lost in their thoughts. Whatever happens next, we face it together, Farron said, his voice resolute. We've come this far. We can't stop now. The ship sped through space, the stars stretching out before them. The final trial awaited, and the crew was ready to face it, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The Astral Voyager arrived in the newly discovered star system, its sensors picking up strange readings as it entered orbit around a dark, barren planet. This is it, Captain Alaris said, staring out at the mysterious world. This is where the next trial begins. Juno worked quickly at her station. I'm picking up massive energy fluctuations on the surface, but there's nothing else here. No signs of life. What kind of energy? Farron asked, his hand resting on his weapon. Juno hesitated, her eyes narrowing. It's concentrated, like a power source, but not something natural. It is almost artificial. Elara turned to the crew, her voice steady. We land, investigate, and find out what we're dealing with. The crew suited up and prepared for the descent. Stay sharp, Elara added. This place could be a trap. Let's not be caught off guard. The Astral Voyager descended into the planet's atmosphere. The surface below dark and foreboding, as if hiding its secrets from the crew. The crew landed on the planet's surface, stepping out into the cold, barren landscape. The air was thick with dust, and the ground beneath their boots was cracked and dry. This place doesn't feel right, Arya said, looking around at the emptiness that stretched for miles. It's like we're walking on the remnants of something ancient. The readings are coming from that structure over there, Juno said, pointing to a large, jagged building in the distance. It looked as though it had once been a massive tower, but now it was crumbling and weathered. The crew moved cautiously toward it, their weapons drawn and ready. What do you think could have caused all this? Farron asked, his voice low. A civilization built all of this, and then vanished. Whatever it was, Elara said, we'll find out when we get inside. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and they quickened their pace, wary of what awaited them in the ruins. The crew reached the entrance to the massive tower, its gates broken and rusted. The air around them was heavy, as though the building itself was holding its breath. This place is old, Juno said, stepping cautiously through the door. And it's unstable. Watch your step. Inside, the walls were lined with strange symbols, glowing faintly as if responding to their presence. The air was thick with a strange energy, and the ground beneath them seemed to pulse with life. What is this place? Arya whispered. It's like it's alive. As they moved deeper into the tower, they found a central chamber. At its heart stood a massive glowing crystal, its energy radiating through the room. This must be the source of the power readings, Elara said. But it feels wrong, like it's been corrupted. Farron stepped closer to the crystal, but before he could touch it, a loud rumble filled the chamber. The walls began to shake, and the crystal flared with bright, blinding light. The crystal flared with light, and suddenly the chamber was filled with a low, rumbling noise. Get back! Elara shouted, pulling Farron away from the crystal just as the ground beneath them cracked open. A swirling vortex of energy erupted from the crystal, pulling the crew toward it. What's happening? Arya screamed as she struggled to stay on her feet. It's reacting to us, Juno yelled. The power's unstable. We have to stop it, Elara said, her voice filled with urgency. But how? Farron asked, grabbing hold of a nearby pillar as the energy vortex grew stronger. We need to disrupt the flow of energy, Elara said, looking around. There must be something in here that can help, As the vortex grew more intense, the walls of the chamber cracked, and the crystal's light became blinding. The crew moved quickly, searching for any way to stop the eruption before the entire tower collapsed. With a final push, the crew managed to reach the crystal and disrupt its energy flow. The vortex suddenly collapsed in on itself, and the room was filled with an intense flash of light. When the light faded, the chamber was eerily quiet. The crystal had gone dark, its power extinguished. "Is it over?" Arya asked, her voice trembling. Elara nodded, her face pale. "For now, but I don't think we've seen the last of whatever was here." The crew made their way back to the ship, the tower behind them now silent and still. "We've stopped the immediate threat," Juno said, looking at the planet's surface. "But the energy signature from the crystal is still there, faintly. Something is still connected to it." Elara looked out at the barren world, her expression grim. "We need to find out what happened here. There's more to this place than we've uncovered." The astral voyager lifted off from the planet's surface, its crew bracing for the next chapter of their journey. The astral voyager soared through the void, leaving the silent planet behind. The crew sat in the command center, processing the events of their most recent mission. The massive energy surge they had encountered had been quelled, but there was no denying the ominous feeling that lingered. "The readings from the crystal, they still don't make sense," Juno said, her brow furrowed as she studied the data. "There's something more to it, something we haven't unlocked." Captain Elara, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the controls, nodded. "We need to keep searching. Whatever's going on here, it's bigger than just this planet." Farron looked out the viewport at the stars, his expression hard. "Whatever it is, we'll find it, and when we do, we'll stop it." Arya walked over, her hand resting lightly on the back of the captain's chair. "What if the danger's already passed?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "What if it's not just the crystal?" Elara turned to face her, her voice calm but resolute. "Then we'll find another way to stop it. We can't afford to take chances." The astral voyager continued on, the vastness of space stretching out ahead as the crew prepared for whatever awaited them. The crew arrived at the next system, a cluster of planets orbiting a giant red star. "We've got a signal," Juno reported, her eyes fixed on her console. "It's coming from the third planet. The source seems to be coming from deep within the surface. Looks similar to the last one." Elara stood up, her expression firm. "This could be it. If there's something else out there, we need to find it before it gets out of control." The crew readied themselves once more, preparing for the unknown. "We don't know what we'll face down there," Arya said, checking her equipment. "But we've dealt with worse." Farron nodded. "We've already come this far, we can't back down now." As the astral voyager approached the planet, the landscape below looked eerily calm. The surface was covered in sprawling forests and mountain ranges. "Let's land and find out what's really going on here," Elara commanded. The ship began its descent, the unknown world below seeming more inviting than the last. But Elara knew better. Something was hiding beneath the surface, waiting for them. The crew set foot on the planet's surface, stepping out into the thick, humid air. The landscape around them was lush and vibrant, the trees towering above them, their branches stretching high into the sky. But something felt off. "This doesn't make sense," Arya said, looking around nervously. "It's too perfect." Farron scanned the area with a frown. "I don't trust it." The crew moved cautiously, their weapons ready, as they ventured deeper into the forest. The energy readings they had picked up before landing were still there, but they were faint, almost as if they were being suppressed. "We're close," Juno said, her voice tense. "The signal's coming from just ahead." The crew made their way through the dense trees, following the path that seemed to lead them deeper into the wilderness. The air grew heavier as they approached a clearing. At its center, a massive stone structure stood, half hidden by the overgrowth. "What is that?" Farron asked, his voice low. Elara stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "Whatever it is, we're about to find out." The stone structure was ancient, its surfaces covered with moss and vines. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, glowing faintly with an eerie light. "This is definitely not natural," Juno said, her eyes scanning the markings. These symbols, they're familiar, but they don't belong here. Captain Elara stepped forward, her hand brushing against the cold stone. We need to get inside. The entrance was blocked by a heavy stone door, but with a few well-placed strikes from Farron, it creaked open. Inside, the temperature dropped, and a strange hum filled the air. The crew moved cautiously into the structure, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it, an orb pulsed with dark energy. "This is it," Elara said quietly, her voice filled with both awe and caution. "Whatever's been hidden here, it's connected to the source of the energy we've been tracking." As she moved closer to the orb, a chill ran through the room, and the shadows seemed to twist and writhe. Captain Elara reached out toward the orb, her fingers hovering just above its surface. The moment her hand touched it, the chamber erupted with a blinding flash of light. The crew recoiled, shielding their eyes as the orb's power surged. "Get back!" Farron shouted, grabbing Elara's arm and pulling her away. The light faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the room eerily quiet. The orb had gone dark, but the air was charged with energy. "What just happened?" Arya asked, her voice shaky. Elara looked at the now dormant orb, her eyes wide. "It's activated something," she said, her voice filled with both fear and realization. "We've opened something, but at what cost?" Suddenly, the floor trembled beneath their feet, and the walls began to crack. The chamber began to shift, and a deep rumble echoed from somewhere below. "We need to leave, now," Juno shouted. The crew ran toward the exit, the ground beneath them shaking as the structure seemed to come to life. They had awoken something ancient, and now they had to face the consequences. The crew scrambled to escape the collapsing structure, the ground shaking violently beneath them as cracks spread across the chamber walls. "Move faster," Elara shouted, leading the charge toward the exit. Farron and Arya followed close behind, their footsteps echoing through the trembling hallways. "The whole place is coming apart," Juno yelled, looking behind them as the stone walls began to crumble. "The energy from the orb is destabilizing everything." As they neared the entrance, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. "We're not going to make it," Arya cried, but Elara's voice was steady. "We will. Keep moving." The walls creaked, and a deep rumbling sound reverberated through the ground. A flash of light erupted behind them as the structure continued to collapse. "Hurry," Farron urged. Just as the ceiling began to fall, Elara slammed her hand against a hidden panel on the wall. The door to the outside opened, and the crew burst into the sunlight, barely escaping the destruction of the ancient structure. Outside, the astral voyagers stood ready for takeoff, the ground beneath them still shaking from the destruction they had narrowly escaped. The crew boarded quickly, their minds racing with the consequences of what they had just activated. "What just happened?" Farron asked, looking back toward the planet's surface, now settling into an ominous silence. "We woke something," Juno said, staring at the glowing readings on her console. "That orb was a key, one that shouldn't have been touched." "It wasn't just a key," Elara replied, her voice filled with concern. "It was a trigger, and we've set it off." The astral voyager ascended slowly from the planet's surface, leaving the wreckage behind. "We need to get to the next system," Elara continued. "Whatever that energy was, it's not gone. It's just beginning." The ship's engines roared to life, and they sped toward their next destination, the weight of the unknown heavy on their shoulders. The galaxy was changing, and they had set the course for a new, uncharted chapter. The astral voyager sped through space toward the next star system, but the crew could feel the weight of the unknown pressing on them. Juno sat at the console, her eyes scanning the sensors. "We've got a massive energy spike," she said, her voice tense. "It's coming from a nearby system. The readings match those from the planet. What's causing it?" Elara asked, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. Juno hesitated. "I don't know, but it's growing. Whatever we unleashed, it's spreading." The ship's course shifted, heading toward the source of the disturbance. "We need to stop it before it's too late," Farron said, his voice grim. Elara nodded. Prepare for a recon mission. We need to know what we're dealing with. The ship's engines hummed as it entered the new system, the stars stretching out before them. The crew braced for whatever lay ahead. The energy from the orb had not just been a threat. It had been a signal, and now the galaxy was responding. The astral Voyager arrived in the new system, its sensors picking up a massive energy field surrounding a distant planet. The source is coming from there, Juno reported, her voice tight with worry. It's not just a power signature, it's alive. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. We're dealing with something far more dangerous than we anticipated, Elara said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. Prepare for landing. We need to investigate this energy firsthand. As they descended toward the planet, the energy field surrounding it pulsed and writhed. The surface below appeared to be shifting, like something vast and hidden was stirring beneath the planet's surface. This doesn't feel right, Arya whispered, her eyes scanning the planet below. Whatever's down there, we need to be ready. Farron tightened his grip on his weapon. Let's make sure we're the ones in control when we land. The ship touched down with a soft thud, and the crew disembarked, ready to face whatever awaited them beneath the surface. The crew stepped onto the planet's surface, their boots sinking slightly into the soft, spongy ground. The air was thick with an unnatural fog, and the sky above was a swirling mix of purple and orange. This place doesn't feel real, Farron said, his voice filled with unease. It's like we're in a dream. Stay focused, Elara said, scanning the area. Whatever this is, we need to get to the source. The crew moved cautiously through the fog, the energy from the planet pulsing around them like an electric current. We're getting close, Juno said, her eyes glued to her scanner. The energy is coming from beneath us. There's an entrance not far ahead. They approached a massive, ancient structure, its doors slightly ajar. The architecture was unlike anything they had seen before, its sharp angles and eerie symbols glowing faintly. What is this place? Arya asked, her voice filled with awe. Let's find out, Elara replied, pushing the door open. The crew stepped inside, and the temperature dropped suddenly. They were about to uncover the heart of the mystery. The doors of the ancient structure creaked open, revealing a dark corridor lined with strange glowing symbols. The air inside was cold, and the faint hum of energy reverberated through the stone walls. This place feels alive, Arya whispered, her voice barely audible. Whatever it is, it's been waiting for us. Captain Elara motioned for the crew to stay alert. Keep your guard up. We don't know what's inside. They moved cautiously, the atmosphere thick with tension. The corridor twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the heart of the structure. The energy readings are getting stronger, Juno reported, her eyes scanning the readings on her console. Whatever this place is, it's drawing power from somewhere deep within. As they moved forward, the hallway opened into a vast chamber, its floor covered with strange symbols. In the center stood a massive, pulsating sphere, its energy emanating outward. What is that? Farron asked, his voice tinged with awe. That, Elara said, her voice steady, is what we came for. The crew approached the sphere cautiously, its energy vibrating through the air. It's pulling at us, Arya said, her hand trembling slightly as she reached out toward it. Stay back, Elara commanded, her voice calm but firm. We don't know what it will do. The sphere hummed louder, and suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from its center, enveloping the room. The crew staggered backward, shielding their eyes from the intense glow. What in the stars is happening? Juno shouted over the noise. It's activating, Farron yelled, his voice filled with alarm. As the light faded, a new figure appeared in the center of the room. A tall, ethereal being, its form composed of shifting light and energy. I am the Guardian, the figure said, its voice deep and resonant. You have awakened me, and now you must face the consequences of your actions. Elara stood tall, her eyes locked on the figure. We're here to understand, not to destroy. What is this place? The Guardian's form flickered, and its glowing eyes focused on Captain Elara. You seek knowledge, but knowledge comes at a price. You have unlocked forces beyond your comprehension. Elara stepped forward, her voice steady. We came here to understand, not to control. We don't want to be your enemies. The Guardian seemed to study them for a moment before speaking again. You must prove yourselves worthy of the power you have awakened. The walls of the chamber shifted, revealing a series of intricate doorways, each leading to different parts of the structure. You must face the trials of the past, the present, and the future. Only then will you be granted access to the knowledge you seek. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. The trials will test your resolve, your unity, and your will. Fail, and the power will consume you. Elara turned to her crew, her face resolute. We've come this far. We will face these trials together. They nodded in unison, ready to accept the challenge that awaited them. The crew entered the first trial chamber, the air thick with tension. The walls of the room were covered with strange symbols, and in the center stood a large pedestal with a glowing orb similar to the one they had encountered earlier. This must be the trial of the past, Juno said, her voice tight. We have to interact with it somehow. Elara approached the pedestal cautiously. Whatever happens, stay close. As her hand touched the orb, the room seemed to dissolve around them. They were transported to a new world, one that felt strangely familiar. They stood in a lush green forest, the sounds of distant birds and the rustling of leaves filling the air. This is a memory, Arya said, her voice full of wonder. It's from our past. As they moved through the forest, they encountered a familiar sight, a younger version of Captain Elara, standing in front of her childhood home. What are we supposed to learn here? Farron asked, his voice filled with curiosity. As the crew approached the younger Elara, the memory began to shift. The peaceful forest scene darkened, and shadows began to creep across the ground. Something's wrong, Juno said, her voice filled with alarm. The young Elara turned, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. It's not supposed to end like this, she whispered. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and the forest began to burn, flames rising from the ground. No! The young Elara cried, running toward the flames. We have to save it. Captain Elara stepped forward, her heart heavy with grief. This is the past. We can't change it. But we can learn from it, Farron said, his voice soft. We can make sure it doesn't happen again. The flames engulfed the memory, and the scene collapsed into darkness. You faced the trial of the past, the voice of the Guardian echoed in their minds. Now, prepare yourselves for the next.